Aye, budget amendment for 2014 salt procurement. Due to a challenging winter, we have expended the majority of our salt monies already this year. We are going to need to purchase an additional, depending on where the pricing comes in, and nobody knows where the pricing is yet. The state is going out for bids right now. Most everybody's talking in between $55 and $65 a ton. That's a little bit more than we paid initially last year. We don't necessarily have to make a budget amendment this evening and decide where those monies are coming from, but we need to be aware that that is before us and start talking about that, at least have the discussion. If you're prepared to do that this evening, that's fine also, and determine where you're taking those monies from.
I look back on 4/8 of 14 and we still had 38,000 left. Is that what we've got left yet?
Yes.
Okay. Then we need to discuss salt for next season yet already?
Well, when the state purchases salt, you have to have what you want reserved in, and that reservation is gonna come in relatively quickly. As soon as the pricing comes in from the various suppliers, we're gonna need to reserve our salt from this, if we choose to buy through the state contract, assuming that is advantageous to us price-wise.
Okay, so you're thinking this year of buying it from a different place than last year?
It's probably gonna come through the same vendors, it's just where you buy it, under what contract, and what pricing is most advantageous for us.
Okay, so last year, I remember we didn't put out, we didn't reserve money till late summer, midsummer. We've got to do it already now with going through the state, if that's what we do?
Yeah, we missed the deadline to participate in the state contract.
Okay, so how do we know if we're going through the state or not?
That's something that we have to determine before, when we get the pricing from them, we have to be prepared to pull the trigger. That's why this is before you tonight, because there's a short window of time when you can reserve salt through their contract.
Okay, so we're not reserving it already because we don't know their price yet?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
But what your chairman is saying, and I don't understand this procedure, so somebody else is gonna have to help me, because I sit at these meetings. The state reaches out, or the county reaches out to everybody and says, how much would you like us to reserve, or how much do you think you might be buying from us, depending on the price? So when they go out and do this master bid, they have a total amount that they can say, we think we have people who want, communities who want. And that's why it's so early, because they've already asked, and as your chairman has said, we've already missed the deadline. But we need the discussion that, because the county and the state are still willing to take your number and consider it, but you're not bound by anything, right?
Correct. We're not.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if I stated anything wrong.
We haven't missed the deadline yet, but we will rapidly approach the deadline. We missed the deadline last year to purchase under the state or the county contract.
Because some of my clients have already been acting on this and authorizing to put in for X amount of salt, depending on the price. Because if you can buy it somewhere cheaper, you're not gonna buy it under the contract, but we all know the chances are pretty good that's gonna be the lowest price around, because they're buying so much. But there is always the potential you'll find it somewhere cheaper.
No, the question I've got, with the problem they had this winter with the shortage, does the state freeze it like the county in reserve for their freeways and highways where we won't be able to get our own salt? Or is it ours once we purchase it?
Well, the state and the county did not freeze any municipality out of getting salt.
I thought they did.
That is not correct.
Okay, let's clarify the terminology. I think what's being said is if you reserved and then bought, you got your guaranteed salt. It's if you ran out, you weren't going to be guaranteed any additional salt, because they were keeping anything they had extra for themselves. Isn't that true? That for every one of my other clients, if they put in for X amount of salt, they got X amount of salt. If they signed up for it in advance, put in for it, reserved it, and then bought it, they all got their salt, okay? But everybody started to run low, and everybody started to run out, and when they went back to the vendors and said, can we get more? They said, no, we have to keep what we have until that other ship came in at the last minute. We have to keep what we have for the state and the county roads. So that's what I understood happened, but I could be wrong.
And I believe you're accurate, and I'm just looking at Mr. Wolf in the back, and we were fortunate enough to have the ability, Wolf Paving had additional capacity, we were fortunate to grab some of their capacity when it was still available.
My point was, I think you were both right, you were just saying it different ways.
But if our salt is stored in the county shed, no, they do not cut us off, is a simple answer. So, is anybody, Mr. Wolf?
And if you don't mind me speaking,
No, please.
there has been.
We should have a practice here of suspending the rules and allowing someone to speak, because we don't let generally people speak during the meeting, but I don't know what your practice has been. And the chairman can just say, does anybody have an objection to suspending the rules and hearing from Mr. Wolf?
Does anybody object to hearing from Mr.
Now, is
Wolf?
this about purchasing salt or storage?
No, it was just about the municipalities being cut off.
Okay.
Suggestion. In the past, it's happened, and it did happen just when there was.
Is there any objection?
There's a little discrepancy.
Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Devin Wolf with Wolf Paving, and I guess we have run into where when certain municipalities like the county cannot get enough salt during the snowstorms or certain events, they will at times cut off the smaller municipalities from being able to pick up from them, because they'll be saving just what they have in their shed, only for the major highways and the county roads. So at times it has come up that they actually could not supply.
So even if it's your salt, they can freeze your own salt?
You'll get it again as soon as they can refill their
Right.
shed, but if they don't have it in their shed to give you, it's correct.
I appreciate your comments, my information is completely different than that. If it's our salt and it's in the shed, we have full access to it. That comes directly from the county. And if it's our property, they can't tell us that we're not gonna get it.
But if it's not there, because if you have say in a snow event where there's 20 days in a row and it's every municipality's pulling out of there, the county's pulling out of there, they cannot replenish their shed fast enough to be able to support everyone. So if there's a barge issue where the barge can't get in, or sometimes there's a few, up to a 6-hour lineup of trucks at the port in Milwaukee. Well, if they can't get enough trucks to come out and actually refill the shed, which a lot of times we'll only get 1 or 2 truckloads a day for all the trucks that are lined up, they cannot replenish their sheds, then they cannot give you the salt you need when there is that snowstorm, and that has happened and does happen.
I understand, if we don't have salt in the shed, we're not gonna get it. But if our salt is in the shed, we have access to it.
And they'll decide whether it's your salt or their salt. It's commingled, it's not that you have your own little spot in the shed.
No, I understand how it works.
It's their salt until you pick it up. And essentially, you're in a pool, but if they decide that they need more than you do, you're not going to get it.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, but the county has a completely different perspective on it.
Well, it's happened to us before when we pulled for another municipality.
So fair enough. Thank you. Are you guys prepared to look at a budget amendment this evening, or do you wanna filter through where to get those funds from? And table this to the next meeting?
Yeah, I would say table this so that we can get a more of a price on what we're gonna be paying, and then decide where we're gonna take it from. So I'll make a motion to table it till next meeting.
When? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. M, authorization to store salt at the county Highway I and Racine Avenue Storage Facility. We just had part of that discussion.
Mr. Chairman, for my benefit, because I don't know what your practice is, could you tell me what your current practices are, what you've done the last couple of years, and because obviously this is on for either a change or an establishment of a current policy?
I think that the best of both worlds would be whomever our contractor is, and if it's Wolf again next year, that we have a store of salt at their facilities so that their vehicles can come in to the town, loaded and prepared to go to work. When they run out of salt, it would be more convenient to have a store of salt closer to town here than having to go all the way back out to, regardless of whether it's Summit, Dousman, you pick your municipality, a ways away from the town of Waukesha. There is no guarantee that there is somebody sitting at the salt storage facility to load. However, the fact is that they run 15 trucks out of County I, and it is a rare occasion that there's not somebody there. They do have scales on all of the loaders, and they do scale out the salt coming out. At the end of an event, if there's salt left over in a facility, it can be dumped right here on our property and put into our shed for our use at a future time. So it is metered, we do know how much we're getting.
And Mr. Chairman, again, I apologize, I admit my ignorance. We buy, you gotta answer some basic questions.
Okay.
We buy salt
Yes,
from somebody, wherever we can get the best price.
yes,
This board's gonna decide how many tons they're gonna guess they need, and it's always the best guess of what we're gonna need for the next season, right?
yes.
Okay, so we follow that procedure, we were talking about that, we're not doing that yet tonight. That's more of the budget amendment and things like that is what you were speaking of.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what have we done in the past years when we bought that salt?
In the past years, we store a small amount in the back here. The vast majority of it would be at the vendor's facility.
Okay, see, that's the part.
Okay, so the best of both worlds would be to have some in multiple
So
locations.
you're suggesting a potential change to the past practice of keeping a small amount here and all the rest that we buy, we get it all up front. Is that correct? And we get it as needed from down at the,
As
in
needed.
Milwaukee?
Yes,
So they go down and get it in Milwaukee instead of the county going down and getting it in Milwaukee. I mean, many of our clients get it, the county just takes care of all of this and their vendors just go there, we know that. But that's not what you've done. What you've done is you order it, it stays a little bit here, a certain amount at Wolf, and all the rest of it is stored in Milwaukee with everybody else's. Down at the barges or
basically, yes.
Jones Island or wherever they keep the salt, because Wolf can't hold it all either, all of it. Is that-
They might be able to.
Well,
they
we
may
can, the
pass.
problem is, if we would take it all, they would get billed for all of it up front, all at once, and why pay for all of it if you don't need it?
Okay, so I just wanna know what the current practice is, that's why I apologize for not knowing, but you got a small amount here, Wolf picks up some, you pay for whatever's here and there, and then they go and get more as they need it to replenish on off days and things like that, to fill up your supply and fill up their supply.
Yes.
Thank you for that courtesy. I don't know if everybody else in the audience knew it either, but this was a big topic under citizen comments, so I thought, well, we better explain it, make sure everybody understands what the change that's being asked.
Just real quick, I speak to the last couple of years, we have bought approximately 2,000 tons per year from two vendors who kind of thought that was in the town's interest to actually work with two vendors. The pricing was very comparable from Morton and North American. Typically, I believe we were obliged to take 80% of the total volume we ordered. And again, we have bought that directly the past years. That was a departure from what we did a number of years ago when the vendor actually bought the salt and we sold it to us at a markup. And often called it from A to B. I'm very much in support in concept of looking at this alternative. The only place I'm at, because there are a lot of questions, my personal preference would actually be to see if we could have somebody here from the county or something. I don't know if that's a possibility, but actually even ask them some direct questions at the next meeting. It is only April and it's not past winter, but it's time to move on this. I'd really like to dig into this, but I'd like to be able to have the entire board have the opportunity to ask some questions directly to somebody if they'd be willing to make an appearance.
You may need it for a snowfall this year.
Maybe.
So, that was 2 ton that we use approximately a year, per year, right?
2,000 tons.
2,000 ton, excuse me, yeah, okay. So I wanna ask a few questions, just to make sure that Mr. Macy's clear, it's not because I don't know. Thank you. On a, please, on a 4 or 5 inch snowfall, you come with your trucks loaded from your stock in Dousman. Is that enough to do the snowfall, or do you typically need to make a run out?
This past year, there were 25 loads that we actually had to make a run out, and that's it. You equated to $2,900, it was about an hour round trip to go pick it up and back up.
So 25 times through the whole year, you had to go out and get more.
Yes, typically we just, one truckload would be all you need.
Okay.
So, and
Let me
then,
just ask one more question.
so you're looking at 25 truckloads that would have come from the county.
Okay, so it wasn't 25 loads, trips, it was 25 trucks.
25 trips,
Yeah.
or trucks, however you want to count it. 'cause we-
One truck went 25 times.
Or 5 trucks went 5 times?
Yes.
Okay.
Same thing.
So, to make sure I understand how the salt is allocated, so we buy 2,000 ton at the beginning of the year.
200.
Oh, I'm 2,000 ton at the beginning of the year. On November 15th, there might only be 500 ton of that allocation in the shed,
Yes.
obviously. The rest will be coming as the shed empties, they fill it up and,
And there's sometimes carryover from the prior year,
sure.
so we might hold on to 500 ton you didn't use from the prior year.
My only point is that the whole 2,000 ton is not in the shed at the beginning on November 15th. So, let's just, for the sake of this argument, say that 500 ton of the 2,000 ton is in the shed on November 15th. And we have a snowfall, we have 3 or 4 snowfalls, and we're salting. And we take out, of that 500 ton that we started with on November 15th, we take out 300 ton. So, in theory, we have 200 ton. Your position is that the county has, in the past, even though we have 200 ton left in that shed, the county has in the past said, we're locking down because we need to reserve what we got. That's your position.
Until they can get trucks loaded
Right.
back into the shed.
Yeah, and then they'll let us start. Your position is that it's not true, the way it's been expressed to you.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it's right in my head.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
If we stick with the rule that we did towards the end of the year when we ran out of salt and just do intersections and hills and curves, will there be, even with the winter we had this year, would have there been that many trips back and forth reloading with salt?
No, as soon as we switched to just intersections and hills, there was never a reload.
So then according to your contract, then you aren't charging till the minute you hit our town border?
Correct, we only charge when we hit the border, and when we leave the border, it stops. The only time we charge the back and forth is when we have to reload.
Okay, so if we load you from the county, you're gonna be charging us from the time you hit our west end all the way through town doing nothing and sitting waiting for salt?
If that's the case. Now, we don't have a problem at all with pulling from the county, we're happy to do that. It's not a big deal. The only thing I look at and say is, how much would we use it? Because if most of your solids have stored there, then all of a sudden, there's the predicament of how do you get it from there to us? Because if we only took 25 loads that we had to go back and forth for, 25 loads at, 5 yards, 6 yards a load is not a lot of salt. So the majority of it still isn't there. So it's just not that big of a deal overall. We're more than happy to do it, but the majority of it, I think, will still end up being kept by us. So it's really pretty, it's really a moot point, it's not a big deal. You could do this and create a working relationship, taking it from there, and you could say it might save under certain times, but it might not under others, because depending on where the route is, if we have to come all the way up to where their shed is, sometimes it might even be closer to go to our own shed. So it just depends on the route and where the driver is, if they have to wait, if they don't. If they have salt and if they don't have salt allowable. So it's just one more call to make, one more element to throw into the mix, but not a problem. I mean, it's just, we're flexible, and it doesn't affect us either way. When, from your perspective, is it going to save you money? I don't think so. I think it'd probably be about a break even, maybe even might end up costing more in a waiting circumstance. We billed a total of $202,000 for snow plowing this year. for plowing hours. And 2,900 of that would have been attributable to going back and forth, which is pretty minor in the scheme of it.
So what conditions do you think would exist where the county is not there? I mean, generally, to me, if we're plowing, they're plowing.
We're
What
plowing.
situation could exist where that's not true?
Well, we probably have 20 to 30 trucks on under any one snowplow event or time. There's never a consistent truck at our salt shed. You know, when our guys get there, they immediately jump in the loader and load themselves. Once in a while, another truck will come up and might load it. I don't think that happens very often, but typically it's empty. It takes 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes to load a truck. If you have 15 trucks out, which the county says they have out in the snowplow tent, if there's always somebody at that shed loading, then they're not doing much plowing. I mean, if you only have 15 trucks and you have to plow all their routes, there's gonna be a lot of downtime in between when they're not there.
So the procedure typically is that, including for the county, for you and including for the county, there's not a guy sitting in the front end loader. The guy pulls up with his truck and loads his own truck and then moves.
Right.
And your position is that your guys at the county garage would not be able to do that, because it's not their front end loader, and they'd have to wait for a county truck to show up.
Right, we'd be happy to do that, but they won't let us.
I understand why they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hang just a second, I have a question that we maybe wandered a bit off topic, but it's one that other people have raised, and I've got a request of you, Devin, and perhaps it might be almost a similar request of Clerk Treasurer Nicholas, but I am concerned about the representation. The town was only paying for time from when vehicles were within town borders. What I would ask of you, and perhaps of her as well, I know back middle of winter, what or not, I looked at some of the invoicing and so forth, and unless I'm mistaken, I think I saw time billed on there for greasing and so forth back at the shop and that type of thing. I'm not sure that's an accurate representation. Would you please revisit all of your billings to the town? And I guess I would ask Clerk Treasurer Salentine as well, because I'm not sure that that's an accurate representation. I'm concerned that it is not.
I think maybe you were looking at the time cards, but the time you actually got billed for, see, we show you the total time card, the time you actually got billed for is not what's on there. We verify that very closely, our guys look at that really closely.
And you've looked at that personally?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, we review them all. So I don't know if you still want me to re-review that or not.
I appreciate it,
Okay,
thank you.
all right.
One quick question for you. Is there a difference in delivery cost out to Dousman versus the county garage from Jones Island?
That I'm not sure. We have to look into. For a municipality, it's usually given to a private contractor, so I don't know if they charge you a greater delivery cost or not. If so, it's pretty minor. We're right off the highway, so it'd be negligent.
And the supervisor asked a lot of good questions to me, but I don't understand that either. Who brings it to you and who brings it to the county? Our salt at Jones Island.
Typically, like if you order salt from Morton or North American or whoever you're buying it from, there's really about 4 suppliers. They have trucks, they will deliver. Now, they're not
And they
very-
charge us for that.
They're not very reliable.
But do they charge us for that?
Yes.
Above what they charge per ton?
Yeah. So, you can put an order in, and you might not see a truck of salt for a couple of weeks. So a lot of times, either we'll hire a third-party trucker, or we'll do it ourselves and haul it out. It's a minor cost.
I just didn't know. I mean, if as part of the county deal, they brought the salt to you because they're bringing it to their shed, we need to know that. I mean, that's not good.
So did you haul salt for us out to your facility?
I don't know, I'd have to look into that. I'm not sure if we did or if yeah, we probably did, because there was a big problem this year with getting salt out of the port.
Sure.
There was, many times, a 6-8 hour wait for the truckers that were sitting there.
Does your rate vary based upon how long it takes or the
No,
seasonality?
no, it was I believe it was a per ton rate. And we always, we're flexible when we do our own hauling. We'll do it on off hours and we'll wait, because we have a big enough storage shed that we have the capacity that we can wait till there's no line and no trucks to refill ourselves, instead of trying to do it when everybody else is in need. In fact, we're selling to a lot of the other municipalities that can't get it during that time of season or when there's a problem. So we're selling to municipalities, other contractors, our competitors, everyone is buying from us because we have capacity. To have a salt storage shed is, if you're gonna do it, you wanna do it big, because it's DNR requirements and hassle and equipment and rust and it's a lot of work.
Thank you.
So, quick question, do you want me to get back to you directly on that? No. Okay, sure.
Gentlemen, do you want to take any action on this evening?
Well, if we're suspending the rules to speak to one, are we suspending the rules to speak to all? Or is that not necessary?
I think Mr. Wolf, our contractor and vendor, is something that was beneficial for us.
I don't disagree that it's beneficial, but.
I don't think we want to open public comments up again. No.
I'm just asking the question, thank you.
Do we want to take any action on this evening?
Well, do we know what the rate is to store it at the county?
Yeah, $7 a ton.
Now, back to the delivery question, does that include delivery, or we have to arrange our own, or does the county help provide that?
You could go either way. We could have it delivered to the county can have it delivered via North American or whomever. That's an open-ended question. The salt purchase and the price per ton of salt are exclusive of the transportation.
Does the county help at all in arranging that? Do they have any price advantage or volume advantage by arranging transportation for us?
I don't think so. I think the cost of trucking is pretty much, the cost of trucking, you would probably have to have a better handle on that than I would, but.
It's all over the board. I appreciate that he says there's easy times to load them. If you know what they are, I'd love to know them, because our trucks sit down there for hours. And we've been there anywhere from midnight till noon.
Well, that's why we wait till the off weeks when nobody really needs it.
It was a tough year this year.
So if it's $7 a ton, how much do we keep there at any given time typically? Or do you just pay for the whole 2,000 ton?
No, we would store there as much as we choose, or we could store out at Wolf or whomever as much as we choose, and bring it in as we choose. The maximum that they have capacity for at that particular facility for us is 500 tons.
Mr. Chairman, are you the one who put this on the agenda?
Yes.
I mean, I just put this, because we're gonna have to start a procedure, to change something, but what was the reason? What did you find as a savings? I mean, what was, we still, I hate it when we're 3/4 of the way through an agenda item and I still don't understand exactly why this is on and what the, you know.
A savings, in my opinion, a savings, convenience, salt closer to home, better control.
And I'm not challenging any of that, does Wolf charge us anything to store the salt?
I don't think so. You don't charge us for storage, do you?
No, we never have, and it was even brought up, because, I don't remember if it was this year or prior, or somewhere along the lines, different municipalities that needed to store salt that they bought cheaper, or that they over-purchased, and we stored it over the summer for free. So we've never charged anyone yet, never.
I mean, where did you think the savings was? I mean, you must have had a reason, it's the convenience and the travel time and things like that.
Travel time.
The only concern I've got is Wolf supplied us with 700 ton, was it, this winter? That we ended up having to reimburse you that we were short, or around that?
I don't really know, so I didn't get too involved in the.
Okay, as far as I recall, it was like 700 ton we ran short. And Wolf had enough there that we could pull off their stockpile till we got ours back in. If we go over to the county garage, I can't see them giving us 700 ton. So I don't know where, with the round trip and possibly going over there and sitting for 2 or 3 hours in between loads, where it's gonna save money by not going and storing it all by them and let them weigh everything in and out. It's just, I think it's the right way to go.
Fair enough. Back to the original question, do we wanna take any action on this tonight, or do we wanna move on?
Well, I don't think we have enough information. If we're saying that the county's gonna charge you $7 a ton to store it, both charges is nothing. I understand the idea that there's time savings at the county garage. Is there a minimum as to how much we need to keep there?
No.
And there's a time savings, but as I understood the conversation here tonight, there's no cost savings because they didn't charge us for time outside the town.
No, we are charged for round trips,
Yeah,
to reload.
when we're in the middle of an event and we have to go refill, that's the only time you get charged.
Got it, thank you. And that was 25 times.
Correct.
Why don't we,
One quick question, hopefully it'll kind of clear it up. So we could start this and say we'll put 500 ton at the garage. And as we're into it, whether we use Wolf or whomever, can amend that any way we want.
yes,
If we find it's a huge savings to us to use the garage, you can put all of it there.
and I wouldn't suggest that, because you would want trucks loaded when they hit
Right.
town soil, but why don't we back off for a moment and get somebody from the county here so that we can get something, conversation direct from them also.
Can I ask one more question? Just so I have the numbers, because the gentleman is here. So I made 25 round trips. You say that takes about 2 hours,
No, it was about an hour.
about an hour round trip?
There was 2 events that were very icy ice events.
Sure.
That took just over an hour, the rest took an hour.
An hour round trip, and I'm paying what per hour?
120,
120? Thank you.
was misquoted in the paper.
So, if there's nothing further, we'll move on.